I've begun to record. I will now switch to PowerPoint, and Mr. McCabe, can you confirm that I'm am I sharing the correct screen, Bill?
Yep. Once I start talking, you can just flip to the next screen.
All righty.
I'll let you make the call when we should start, Tim.
We have audience has arrived. I think we can begin.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Welcome to the Ridgewood High School Alumni Career Speaker Series. I'm Bill McCabe. The Alumni Career Speaker Series is a program intended to let members of the Ridgewood High School community to learn about the interesting career paths of a particular alum. We launched the program just last year. Last year, we had 4 great speakers. First speaker is Jamie Caridi. She's the Chief Administrative Officer of Wells Fargo Securities. She talked about running the business side of an investment bank. Second speaker was Michael Aaron Flicker, who's truly an entrepreneur. He formed his company in the late 90s as a freshman at RHS and still runs it 24 years later to this day. It's a multi-million-dollar company with over 70 employees worldwide. And he talked a lot about digital advertising, but focused quite a bit on entrepreneurship. Our third speaker was Dr. Ajay Kirtane. Dr. Ajay Kirtane is one of the world's leading interventional cardiologists. And finally, our fourth speaker was John Elton, who's a famous venture capitalist focusing on the software industry, someone you might recognize from his appearances on CNBC, Bloomberg, and the like. But this year, we decided to add 2 new wrinkles. The first wrinkle is a student interviewer to give the student's perspective, and that's Matthew Peters, and we'll talk about him in a moment. And the second is to expand the career focus outside of traditional jobs, business, medicine, entrepreneurship, to the arts and into other areas. So the format tonight is I'm going to hand the reins shortly over to Tim and to Matt, our 2 interviewers, and they're going to interview Andy, and then we'll invite the audience to jump in. But before we do that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the Ridgewood High School Alumni Association. So the Alumni Association was formed in 2014. Dr. Tom Gorman gets quite a bit of credit. Dr. Gorman is a 1987 graduate of RHS. He was the principal from 2012 to 2020, and just this year became the superintendent of schools. But about 7 or 8 years ago, Dr. Gorman recognized that there's such a strong affinity among so many generations of alumni for RHS. And he thought to himself, can we tap this to leverage this love for RHS to help fellow students, to help alumni? And he endeavored really to take a prep school or college-like approach to our alumni. He gathered a bunch of alumni and they really deliberated and thought about it. And ultimately, they formed the Ridgewood High School Alumni Association. Today, we're about 30 trustees. It's a 100% volunteer organization. And it's been a great thing to be a part of. I'll tell you a little bit in the next slide about some of our major accomplishments and some of the things we focus on. A few years back, we launched Reunion Weekend. This is an annual event. That's the Columbus Day weekend. The goal is to model the weekend after a college where multiple classes come back and celebrate their milestone reunion. So if you're in a class that ends in a 2 or a 7 next year, hopefully you'll align your class reunion with this weekend. But this past October, when we had it, we had 5 events. So on Friday, we had set up a football game, after which we had events downtown, including a pub crawl. On Saturday, we had a lawn event where we invited people to come back to the campus to take tours of the high school, enjoy some time with their kids and other folks that maybe they wouldn't bring to a party. And then on Saturday afternoon, we had a great event. It was called the Chalk Talk. Willie Geist, TV personality and Ridgewood High School class of 93, interviewed his teammates and coaches from the 1991 football state champs that he was a part of. On Saturday night, the classes went off and did their own separate reunions. And then on Sunday morning, everybody returned to campus. And Jim Stroker, a gym teacher that many of you know, and an inspirational speaker and also class of 1970, led us through a yoga session. So it was a great weekend. And again, if you're having your reunion this year, hopefully you'll reach out to us through our website and plan your reunion around this weekend. Second thing we focus on quite a bit is the distinguished alumni. These are people that have done remarkable things with their careers and their lives. We have a biennial dinner. This one's coming up on March 23rd in downtown Ridgewood, and then we honor them permanently inside the school. One of the other things we focused on just the past 2 years is honoring students. Of course, this was born out of COVID during, of course, a very tough time for all of us, but especially for juniors and seniors in high school. the Alumni Association thought, how do we let these students know that we're thinking about them and that we support them? So we launched a program 2 years ago, and we did it again this past spring, where we installed 435 individual banners at 4 locations in Ridgewood, BF, GW, the high school, and Graydon, one rep for each student, just to let them know that we're thinking about them and that we've got their back. It's a program we did in 2020, and we replicated this just this past year. Another thing we focus on is financial gifts. Either directly or cumulatively, we've helped facilitate about $1 million in gifts back to RHS. The biggest gift was certainly last year. We received a $635,000 gift from the Dave and Cheryl Duffield Foundation. Mr. Duffield is a class of 58 graduate. He's a really interesting story. He's a true entrepreneur. At the age of 47, he formed a company called PeopleSoft. 18 years later, at the age of 65, he sold it to Oracle for $10.3 billion. Most of us, I know I would have retired, but not Mr. Duffield. 6 weeks later, he formed the company Workday. So he's been very generous to the Alumni Association, and we've helped facilitate that gift for RHS. It's going into 3 areas: the refurbishment and new equipment for the Makerspace Lab, the Culinary Lab, and the TV studio. And all of those gifts are being applied just this year, and we're very appreciative of it. The last thing we focus on is the Career Network, which is headed up by Tim Monahan, who you're going to meet shortly. The Career Network is 2-pronged. There's the RACS program, which is the RHS Alumni Externship Program, where students can get to meet alums and learn about their careers. And there's the Alumni Career Speaker Series, which is what we're doing tonight. So if you can advance to the next slide, Tim. I'm especially excited about tonight. My classmate, Andy Daly, is our featured speaker. I'm going to let Tim introduce him in a moment, but he's the person that you probably recognize every time you turn on the TV. And if not, you certainly will after tonight. He was a fun classmate, and I know we've got a great representation from RHS 89. Here's a little flashback to Andy and some of his fellow students in, I think, the TV class. I'm not sure why everyone looks so angry here, but a lot of fun people in this picture. But our interviewers tonight, so Matthew Peters, he's a Ridgewood High School senior. We met Matthew just a few months ago when he joined us at that Chalk Talk event, and he interviewed Willie Geist for the High Times. He did such a great job. We thought he'd be a great addition to the interviewing team. And Tim Monahan. Tim Monahan's an RHS 97 graduate, fellow Orchard School graduate, a good friend of mine, and the new assistant principal at GW after 17 years teaching economics at RHS. And I'm personally interested to hear some principal advice going from Andy back to Tim on how you serve as a principal of middle school. But I'll let Tim get to the bottom of that one. Anyways, thanks so much, Andy, for being our speaker tonight. We're really delighted to have you here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Tim.
Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you to Andy Daly for being here, and for Matthew Peters for taking time out of a very busy senior year. And folks, I'm going to start with a mea culpa. I am the one responsible for the multiple emails you got this evening with different links. That's all me, and I apologize about that. Putting a Zoom webinar together means there's 2 different links, and I'm sorry for all those emails. I'm looking at the audience. We've got an incredible turnout live right now, and many people are going to be watching the recording of this on the Ridgewood High School Alumni Association network and YouTube channel. But I want to start by saying thank you so much to Andy Daly for taking the time out. It is an incredible treat to have somebody of his creative talents, his critical acclaim, his accomplishments, just somebody as incredibly talented and accomplished as you to join us this evening is going to be a real treat for Ridgewood residents, Ridgewood alumni, and Ridgewood High School students. Andy, if we could just kind of jump into things, could you walk us through how when you left Ridgewood High School? We're going to circle back to what Ridgewood High School was like when you went there, but how did you go from the little theater and the TV studio? How did you end up getting out to well, you're going to end up in New York, of course, but how did you end up getting into improv? How did you end up getting into comedy and the amazing things that you're doing today?
Wow. Well, that's so many. Thank you so much for all those wonderful compliments. That was delightful. I'm so glad that's being recorded. That'll be my new ringtone. Just Tim Monahan complimenting me. I also want to thank Bill. Bill, I liked your photo that you put up when you turn off your camera. And so I did that too. I put it. I got that.
A little airbrushing looks good. Yeah.
I was like, how does he do that? Yes, how did I? Well, I don't know. This would go all the way back to 1989, and graduated Ridgewood High School, and I went to Ithaca College for the purpose of, because I found out that you could major in television and radio at certain schools, and that was kind of watching TV was all I wanted to do. And so that's what I went there for. But I ended up in the acting program. And so I knew I wanted to have a career like David Letterman's, that he was a communications major at Ball State and then became a broadcaster. And because he was funny, that turned into a comedy career and then a comedy broadcasting career. And so I was envisioning something like that. David Letterman, for people my age, was a hero. So I was looking up to him, but then I don't know. I didn't end up doing television and radio. I don't think my grades were good enough to get into that program at Ithaca College. So I auditioned for the acting program, and they have very few expectations of your grades in the acting program. So they let me in there, and I learned how to act. And yeah, and then I learned a lot about comedy improvisation in college. That was a time. I think I first heard about it in a book called Saturday Night, The Backstage History of Saturday Night Live, and then Bob Woodward's book about John Belushi. So those books touched on Second City in Chicago and comedy improv. And so I knew I really wanted to do that. That seemed like something I could do and really wanted to do. And in college, there was a little of that going on. So I just left college knowing that I wanted to have like a comedy acting career, and went to New York and just started taking improv classes and getting into sketch shows and just getting into the mix as much as I possibly could. And then, yeah, I don't know how much I should condense my life story, but then I got a dog, and then I moved into a house. I don't know. But yeah, it started off Ithaca College to New York to LA.
And when you got involved in improv, you were one of the earliest members of Upright Citizens Brigade in New York. Can you tell us just a little bit about what that experience was like?
Yeah, so I graduated Ithaca College in 1993 and I moved back into Ridgewood, into my parents' basement, where it was me and the spiders. So many spiders. I remember once I was sound asleep and I woke myself up going, and there was a spider on my hand. I woke myself up slapping a spider on my hand. Anyway, it's a great basement, beautiful finished basement. Mom and Dad, who are watching this, did a great job on the basement. There's just some spiders down there. Now, I lived in their basement for a while, and then and I was getting involved in the improv scene in New York, which at that time was the Upright Citizens Brigade was not there. And it was very, whose line is it anyway? Short form style improv was all that was going on. And I just got as involved as I could. And there was a company at the time called Chicago City Limits, which I think is gone now, but was in New York for a long time. And I got very involved with that company. And then in 1996, I saw down at Luna Lounge, which I believe is gone, down on Ludlow Street in the East Village. There was a comedy night down there, and the Upright Citizens Brigade performed. And at the end of their performance, they said, come check out our fully improvised show, Ass Cat, at the Solo Arts Theater on 17th Street this Sunday. And so I went and saw that, and I just said, well, I have to know how they do that, because it was not like anything I had ever seen before. And then at the end of that show, Matt Walsh, who's now, he was on Veep, great actor, one of the founding members of the UCB. He said, we're doing a one-day workshop in a couple of weeks, and there's a sign-up sheet in the lobby. And I think I was the first name on the sign-up sheet, and that was the first class they ever taught. And I've just been involved ever since.
Did any influences when you were a student at Ridgewood High School stand out to you as getting you ready to be able to thrive as an improv artist, as an actor, as a comedian, as a performer in general?
Ooh, Influences. Well, two come to mind. When I was going through, Robert Sean Leonard, or as we called him, Bobby Leonard, was a couple of years ahead. And I don't think he ever showed up for high school because he was like starring in Brighton Beach Memoirs on Broadway at the time. And then you know him from Dead Poet Society and all that. And so that might have been a little bit of a, I don't know, like a suggestion that you can come from here and do that kind of thing. But probably just as important or more important was RHS TV for me. Was like, that was a really free place. I did New Players, but of course, New Players is written plays. But RHS TV was literally like a bunch of guys can just take a camera and kind of make whatever you want. And so we had a sketch show, me and Andy Blitz, who's now a working comedy writer and comedian, and very funny guy who wrote on Review with me and produced it. He and I did sketch comedy with my cousin Dan Kiernan. It was called Almost Live. I don't know why. And we did sketch comedy. And so that was a feeling of like, we can have a germ of an idea and we can create it and we can write it up and then we can improvise it in front of the camera and then we can edit it. And that was just a really exciting sense of like being able to create your own thing. And I think that let me know that that's something I wanted to always do.
What's so cool about that is, I growing up remember having a catalog of VHS cassettes in my basement, and it was essentially recordings of RHS TV from the 1980s. I had siblings who graduated in 86 and 88 and 89. And I know exactly what you mean about the creativity with that. On the RHS note, Matthew Peters, did you want to jump in with some of your questions?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I want to thank you so much for for allowing me to be on the Zoom with you guys. But I guess my first question would be, what is your advice to current RHS students who are looking to pursue a career in the performing arts, or like you said, who are in RHS TV right now? And then like, what was the most helpful advice you received when you were in their spot?
Ew, how interesting. So advice. So there's a few different ways of going about it. I think like I always tell people who want to do comedy, in particular comedy actors, that you can't wait for somebody to pluck you out and give you opportunities. Like, and I'm sure that this is true of just straight actors as well, but in particularly in the comedy world, where comedians are expected to generate their own material, and they do, and it's a skill that comedians have. You just need to create your own opportunities as much as possible, and get yourself on tape doing things, put up shows, create opportunities for people to come and see you. And you can't wait around for somebody to say, hey, you're great, here's an opportunity. You just have to create them all the time, even if they don't pay, even if they cost you money, because they're ways of being seen, but more importantly, they're ways of doing the thing you do and getting practice doing the thing you do and meeting other people who like to do it, and finding co-conspirators. So that's an important piece of advice, I think. And also learn how to do it, like it's to be a lifelong student of whatever your craft is, I think is really important, to be constantly improving and trying to figure out where you need to improve. You're never done improving at the thing that you love to do. And then I'm trying to think of advice that I read a book, it might be out of print now, but it was Charles Grodin's autobiography. Charles Grodin is a hilarious actor, and he wrote a book called It Would Be So Nice If You Weren't Here. And in some ways, the tongue-in-cheek purpose of the book was to talk aspiring show business people out of a career in show business. But it was good to read. It was full of like, hey, it's tough, it's competitive and it's hard, and this business doesn't want you in it, is how it's going to feel a lot of the time. But stick to your guns all the time seemed to be his general advice. So I would say know that it's going to be a difficult journey. do it because you love doing it and stick to your guns.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think RHS does an excellent job of, like kind of pushing that proactive mindset that you're talking about of like making your own opportunities. And that leads me to my next question, actually. So, I mean, Ridgewood Public Schools has always encouraged students to be resilient. And I'm sure in such an extremely competitive field such as yours, I'm sure there's a lot of rejection in between the successes. So, how has that idea of resiliency helped you?
Well, it reminds me of another piece of advice I got from an acting teacher once, which was to have a clear sense of goals, and to sort of write out your goals. And the way she put it was that if you know what your goal is, then every day when you wake up, you know what to do, which I thought was just a simple and very good piece of advice. So if you know, I need to get more auditions. I need to, whatever the thing is that you have each day to wake up and do to further yourself toward your goals, is helpful, I think, with resiliency, because then it doesn't matter that you get knocked back. You still know where you want to go, and you still wake up every day with a sense of what you need to do to get there. But also, I think it's important to accept that you're going to really put yourself out there and you're going to be rejected. And it's not like they don't usually tell you why you didn't get a part. You know what I mean? So you're free to imagine whatever you want. You're free to imagine the best case scenario, which is that they loved me so much, but my hair color was too similar to the person that they have to hire to play the other, or you're free to imagine they despised me. And as soon as I walked in, they were vomiting in their mouths from the sight of me. There's no explanation forthcoming. So you can tell yourself whatever you want. But, just to know that like it's going to sting and you're going to go through a lot of things, and you can get down about yourself. You can think the worst about yourself. But you know what you want to be doing, and you just, I don't know, you keep doing it because you love it. I do a thing where I keep like an audition journal where I and it's funny to go back and read it, because after every audition, I come back and just write down like what went wrong. And, and sometimes I'll get these parts, but I will walk out feeling so bad. But it's helpful, I think, to just kind of think about, I don't know, what mistakes did I make? How did I get in my own way? What can I do better? So to just always be thinking about the next thing and improving and getting to that next place, I think is helpful for resilience.
Yeah,
That was not only a great answer, but what a great question from Matt Peters. I just had to say that's such an awesome thing for someone who's a senior in high school to be thinking about the importance and the value of resiliency. And that was actually a question I was going to ask too, Matt. So good job.
Oh,
Matt's a good interviewer and a tough interviewer. He refused to give me his questions beforehand. Earlier. No, that's not true. He offered, and I said no. Now I wish I'd gotten them beforehand. These are tough questions.
If I could jump in with one, and this is also going to be recorded, so it could be on your ringtone. I think of you as definitely the greatest character actor and the greatest character creator out there right now. Can you tell us just a little bit about how do you go about creating a character? And I'm going to use an example here. It's a little close to home. There's a little character out there named Principal Dwight that some of my students and some members of the audience know. What's the process of creating one of these characters like, and how are you so good at it?
Well, yeah. So Principal Dwight, I mean, sometimes I create characters who are more sort of sketch comedy characters that are just entirely of my own creation. But Principal Dwight was a case where there was a script. They had written a script based on a book. I don't remember if I ever read the book. I don't think I did, but I read the script. And yeah, he just seemed to me like the script gives you clues. And in that script, he was obsessed with the success of his school, and he was obsessed with being number one and being the best principal of the best school, which the way that was measured in his world was purely just high test scores, which he's interpreting as everybody just needs to have maximum discipline and nothing can go off the rails. And so he's just a guy who's looking to control everything and for the purpose of his own ego. So those seem to be just the important things to know about him for every scene, and that he's very egotistical and he's very self-absorbed and he's very proud of his own sense of humor and his suits and his office. And just, you know, when somebody is built up that big in their own mind, it's going to be fun to watch them fall. So that was the whole process of creating that character. And then that movie, I don't know why this happens often when I'm in a movie, like sometimes I feel like we've got it, like we've done enough takes and we have it. And so if they want to do another take, I'll just start improvising. I'll just go off the script. And then sometimes the director says, great, more of that. And other times I go, don't do that. But that was a movie where he said, great, more of that. So a lot of it became just taking those nuggets of what I think about the character and coming up with new things for him to say, which was a lot of fun.
So what some of the audience might not know is that Andy actually has more experience as a school administrator than I do. He's been a principal 3 times. I'm in my first year and I'm only an assistant principal. I haven't even made it to principal yet. Any advice for a lowly, first year assistant principal?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was a principal on Eastbound and Down and a principal on Modern Family and middle school, the worst years of my life. And I feel like there might have been more. I think, because people ask me this frequently, how come you're always cast as a principal and as a doctor? Those are the 2 things I'm always doing. And I think it is because I don't know, but it's fun for somebody who is supposed to know what they're doing to be, dumb or venal or egotistical or cruel, just kind of mean. And that's, I don't know, I guess that's something I play well. So I would say if you want to surprise your students and the community and the teachers, if that's important to you, try being cruel and ignorant and selfish and
next thing you know, you'll be the full principal.
Yes, exactly.
Fantastic.
That's yeah.
I wrote all that down. Thank you.
You wrote all that down. Oh, good. Oh, you're gonna do fine.
Tim, I know we're not probably going to questions yet, but I have to give you, Andy, our messages are piling up with RHS 89, just comments. So excited to see Andy Daly, Tim Morton, Maureen Montegary. Hello, class of 89ers. Kevin Harris. Hi, all. It's been a long time. Paul Ramirez. Everybody can see these comments, Tim?
Oh, they can?
Yes.
Paul Ramirez. Smoking with Mr. Wiener in the breezeway was a great experience together.
I wasn't there. I remember Mr. Wiener smoking in the breezeway.
But for people that are younger, one, people used to smoke in the 80s. 2, they could smoke on the campus, and 3, they smoked with their teachers. I didn't, but that was not an issue. Karen Moeller, great seeing you, Andy. Bonnie Plump is proud of you, as is her mother. Michael Frank, it's amazing to see Andy in a setting like this. Brings back a lot of memories.
Wow.
Gail Schwartz, always a proud moment to see RHS alumni on TV. Jim Portalatin, congratulations, such a great career. For me, it's so fun and we're doing this because these are all people we both know. But the one thing I'm noticing is people are trying to claim you. You've got people that are saying Hawes rules and other people saying Travell Tigers. I mean, are you a Hawes guy or are you a Travell guy?
We were talking about this a little before. I went to Hawes from kindergarten through 3rd grade, and then I was at Travell for 4th, 5th, and so I was at Hawes a year longer. Wow. I think that does make me a Hawes guy.
No Ducks.
So, but I don't remember the Ducks. Yeah, I don't remember that there were Ducks or Tigers involved when I was at either school. I don't think the schools had mascots in those days.
No corporate sponsorship.
And I don't think they need them now. No, no corporate sponsorship. No. I don't remember that. I remember Hawes School had a playground that was built by the dads, and it was built out of splinters. And it was accidentally built too high off the ground. So when you got a splinter, you would fall like 4 feet. It was like a wood structure. And then Travell, when I was there, had a tire playground that anytime it rained, all the tires would fill up with water. So those were just golden days of playground fun.
Do you think that's where the resiliency comes from? The intentionally harmful playgrounds of the 1980s?
Yeah. Yeah. You had to be resilient. Absolutely. God knows what diseases were floating around in those tires.
We do have a question here. We got from Kevin Harris, our classmate. Andy, which teacher was most instrumental to your success today?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, they all just tried to hold me back. I mean, I had to fight. No, which teacher? I loved so much. Carol Durbin was my English and journalism teacher, and Jack McKeon was an English teacher of mine. Helen Aslanides was a history teacher of mine. Yes, and then Brian Ashinger, who was he never worked at RHS. That was a strange deal where he was a teacher at some other school, and he would come over to Ridgewood High School to direct our plays. He was the new players director, and he gave me a lead role in my sophomore year. So he believed in me. Jack McKeon, by the way, senior year, I owed him a paper, and he was going to fail me, which meant I would not graduate. And I convinced him to give me an incomplete on the promise that I would get him the paper at some point after graduating. I did not do that. Why would I? But I felt bad about it ever since. I'm sure he's retired, but he retired with me owing him a paper.
Fantastic. That's great.
Couple more interview questions. I'll ask one, and then I know Matt Peters has another one or two for you. What were some of your favorite comedy influences growing up? The 1980s, a time really, really rich with comedy. I'm curious to know what some of these the answers to this question might be. What were some of the things that influenced you?
The biggest influence for me in the 80s would have been Martin Short on Saturday Night Live. There was one season of Saturday Night Live where the cast had Martin Short and Billy Crystal and Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer and Julie Louis-Dreyfus was in that year, and Mary Gross, I think. And it was so great. It was so funny. There was one episode, Eddie Murphy came back to host, and I recorded it on VHS, and I must have watched it 1,000 times. And that was 1980, I think 4. So I was at BF. I was in junior high, and at BF, they had a kind of a radio station. I don't know if anything like that still exists, but it was you would be on the PA from the music room in the morning before homeroom. So that I would get out of bed real early and go to school and do this radio show that teachers could choose to have on or not. And I'm sure I'm probably none of them had it on, but I would. I just impersonated Martin Short's characters. I just did Ed Grimley and Mort, Give Me a C, a Bouncy C, and all of his characters on that radio. So Martin Short was my hero in the 80s. And Letterman.
I'm going to go back to Ridgewood High. I have a question for you. So I believe you were the Board of Ed rep for our class.
Yes, I was.
And so first off, I'm realizing now that you might not even be an alumnus if you never handed in that paper. So we might have to change the name of the speaker series. But for now, let's just assume you're an alumnus. It just seems like an odd combo, a guy who's not handing in his papers, who's the Board of Ed rep. But what was your motivation for being the Board of Ed rep? How that happened? Like, did you view that as an outlet to be creative, or what was that all about?
Well, I don't know. I ran for office every year and I never won. It started in the 8th grade. I ran for class president, and my only campaign promise was that if elected, I would get a haircut. And I really needed one. But I didn't win. And I don't know. So Jason Solomon, who was the student Congress president, said that I should be he suggested to me that I should be the student representative to the Board of Education, which was like, it gave you a seat on the student Congress as well. I think maybe he pitied me. I think that was it. It was like, every year you run for office and lose. So here's a way for you to end up on student Congress without having to run and have people choose you. So he suggested that I do that. And Bob Honsinger, Principal Bob Honsinger, was the only one I think who had to rubber stamp it. So I did that, and it was a lot of fun. I went to every school board meeting. I got the agenda ahead of time, and I poured through it. And I really worked hard at that. But then it did become an outlet to be creative, because every once in a while the student rep was expected to kind of give some remarks about like how things are going for the students, and it just became I just had fun with it. I just wrote jokes. So it didn't start out that way, but it became that.
That's great. Tim, maybe we'll give Matt the floor again. And Matt, do you have any more questions for Andy?
Oh, sure. I have one more. Well, first, I think that paper story is hilarious. I mean, could you imagine if you wrote it for him now and just sent it to him?
I would love to. I've thought about it many times over the years, but I don't know what to write it about. I don't remember what we were studying. You're a senior. What are you being asked to write about in English class?
Well, right now for English, I'm taking philosophy of race. So we're kind of doing stuff like that. But
that sounds hard to me. That sounds difficult. But all right.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a paper on the philosophy of race.
There you go.
Although I don't know quite what that refers to. And I'm going to find Jack McKeon and give it to him so that I can, in good conscience, participate in this alumni association event. What's your question, Matthew? You have a question.
So my question is, do you have a favorite new players show that you were in? And is there any reason why?
I'm glad you asked me, Matthew. First of all, as we were saying before the show, I saw the Great Gatsby production that Matthew Peters was in as Wolfsheim. Is that the name of the production? And Matthew was fantastic. My parents live in Ridgewood, and they go to the new player shows all the time. They don't know anybody involved in it. They just go and they enjoy it, and they love the Addams Family show. Mom and Dad, Matthew was in the Addams Family show. What was your question? Oh, so yeah, as I was sitting in the little theater just 2 months ago or whatever, on a trip back to Ridgewood, I was thinking about the moment in 1985. It was actually a summer stock show. The play was Little Abner, and I was playing Evil Eye Flegel, and it was like not the first play I was in, but it felt like it because it was the real deal. It was like really in a theater. And I just remember stepping on stage and just being flooded with adrenaline and doing this scene that was really funny and getting all these laughs that I didn't know were going to happen because it was we had rehearsed it and there weren't laughs. And then this is my memory. Maybe this is wrong. But at the end of my scene, it's just a big comic scene with Evil Eye Flegel. I had to exit stage right. And the stage left wing, Matthew, you can back me up on this, is where most of the action is. That's where you come on to backstage from the hallway. That's where the prop tables are going to be and everything. Stage right, there's not a lot of room. There's pretty much at the end of the flat, it's the brick wall. Nobody hangs out back there. So the scene ends and I exited stage right and I'm all alone with my back up against a brick wall. And the audience applauded. I got a big ovation from the audience. And that moment, I always think of as like, that was it. I knew I had to do this. And in some ways, I've been, chasing that exact feeling for how long has it been? Somebody else do the math. But yeah, so Little Abner, 1985, Little Theater, Evil Eye Flegel stands out in my mind forever.
Yeah, that's really special. It is, a special feeling when you're like on stage, and it's just like the rush of adrenaline is really one of a kind.
It was weird. And I was so glad that we rehearsed it as many times as we did, because my brain was in places like, oh, wow, with the lights on, I can't really see very well. I can only see, like I was having this whole mental experience while saying the lines. And thank goodness I knew the lines in muscle memory at that point. So anyway, yes, it's exciting.
So I watched about 62 episodes of Bonanza as interview prep for this. So I can ask this one question. What are you?
We only have like 380 to go.
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm chipping away. In my, I watch the episodes with the students for detention in the vice principal's office here.
Ooh,
they have
that's
to
harsh.
do that during
harsh.
lunch. Could you tell the audience what are you working on these days, and where could they access some of your podcasts?
Yes, well, I was talking a little bit about sketch characters that I create. I have created a character named Dalton Wilcox, who is a cowboy poet. He calls himself the Poet Laureate of the West, and he has his own podcast, which is called Bananas for Bonanza, where he recaps episodes of Bonanza, which ran from 1959 to 1974, and it only made 431 episodes in that time, sadly. And I believe we're 23 episodes in recapping. And I do it with Matt Gorley and Maria Bamford. And we do it now on ComedyBangBangWorld.com, CBBWorld.com. If you sign up for the, what did I say it was called? The Maximus. Yes, the Maximus plan. Then you can hear that. And the other I have 3 podcasts that alternate there on the Maximus plan at CBB World. And one of them is about Bonanza. You don't have to be a Bonanza fan to enjoy it. Thank God. I don't know that anyone is.
And I had put a link of that in the chat just for everyone who's attending right now. And Andy, how do you feel about the fact about this rumor that you're part of the Ridgewood High School curriculum, that your work as Forrest McNeil on Review is being used as an example of comedy?
Unbelievable.
In the classes of the likes of people like Mr. Carollo and Mr. Cheplick. Are you okay? I mean, we just heard about this scandalous lack of a paper being turned in. So, and you're part of the curriculum at the same time. Do you have any comments on this?
Carollo and Cheplick, those guys? That's crazy. I just learned this. Tim has told me that they are teaching Review in classes. It's an outrage. This is the public taxpayer money going to no, of course I'm beyond flattered and thrilled, and I said that I would be happy to provide the original scripts for those guys if you want to see it on paper. Maybe I could turn that in as my English paper. Do you know what I mean? That seems like Jack McKeon would accept an episode of Review in lieu of paper. Maybe
you wrote the episodes, so
I would have to include a bibliography, though. I don't remember that format at all.
MLA, I think that's still popular. Bill McCabe, should we take a couple of questions from the audience? We've got a couple of good ones posted here.
Yeah, Tim, let's do that. So we've got one from Steve Milano, your former RHS TV advisor. Oops, just lost it there. His question is, I always in caps wondered if any in caps of those great and funny ideas from Almost Live ever resurface in your future work. It feels like so many of those ideas could have been given a rebirth.
Oh, I don't know. But I'll tell you what, Andy Blitz, who I did Almost Live with, just recently had a birthday. And I thought it would be fun to find a clip of Almost Live to send him for his birthday. And so I found a clip of him in a parody of Bob Ross's TV painting show. And it was hilarious. And Andy made a wig and a beard out of his dog's hair and like taped it onto his face. And it was so funny. So I can't say that I don't know that anything from the Almost Live days has necessarily resurfaced, but I have recently rediscovered that and felt like Bob Ross, like he's out there now. He's very zeitgeisty in this moment. And we were way ahead of the curve parodying Bob Ross in 1988. So we can all be proud of that? Question mark. That's the best I can do to answer your question. Hello, Steve. I can't believe Steve Milano is here.
And supplied those great pictures we showed you earlier, by the way.
Yes, thank you, Steve. Great. I think I still have that tie. I used to go to the Salvation Army over there in Ridgewood and buy, they would sell you 10 ties for $1. And they were the worst, most ridiculous 1970s ties in the world. And so I just had a giant box full of ties in my room. And my mom and dad kept it in our attic for years and recently gave it to me. And so I'm rediscovering all these horrible ties. And my daughter, my 14-year-old daughter, sometimes wears them to school. So that was one of those ties in that picture that Steve Milano sent.
Steve Mulatto responded, by the way, the telethon idea was Andy's horrible tie hour at 2 a.m.
That may be true. I don't remember, but yes, we did a telethon to raise money for RHS TV. We were on the air for 24 hours, just roaming the halls of Ridgewood High School, and we shot scenes in the principal's office.
Totally super.
I don't recall any supervision. I suppose Steve was there, but I think he might have been asleep. But it was great fun, and we just had the run of the whole school. That was unwise, but nothing bad happened.
So on second thought, I'm reading some of these questions, and it looks like everyone's is giving you some questions about Willard. But there is one that I want to ask from Ariane McHugh. What was your most challenging role?
My most challenging role. What's that?
Are there any challenging roles you've had to do, or have you loved them all?
They were all challenging, and I love them all, and I love a challenge. No, I would say pressed to come up with some answer for that. I was in an episode of The Closer with
Kira Sedgwick.
Thank you, Kira Sedgwick, and that was directed by Adam Arkin, who is an incredible, hilarious director. Who, unlike a lot of directors, every take will give you a direction that completely changes the scene. And it was the funnest thing in the world. But it was hard because in between takes, he would say, now play it like you, I don't know, play it like you're furious, like you're violent, like you're about to kill them, or play it like you don't take this seriously at all. It's all a joke to you. So every take was a completely different scene, which is a challenge, but a great challenge. And I love the way the episode turned out.
And there are actually I'll combine two questions into one. Do you find any challenges in comedy compared to 25 years ago with all the subjects that are taboo and it's kind of a minefield these days? Has that impacted you at all? Does it change the way you approach your craft?
I feel like I have very much embraced it, and I do think about it a lot because right now, like, I'm not doing live comedy improv because that's not happening at this moment. And my main outlet is these podcasts. And one of them that I was talking about Dalton Wilcox, who is a self-styled salt of the earth American West cowboy. And when I first started performing him in podcasts, he was pretty racist and sexist and homophobic. And that was kind of the joke. And it was ironic that he was. But over time, and as these kinds of content conversations about comedy have happened, it's begun to feel to me like, even though I knew I was on the right side of that, that I was presenting it ironically, it also had the potential to hurt people, or at least bother people or upset people. And so it's been very interesting over time to play with that character in our world, adjusting his language in sort of real time, week to week. And it has felt to me very honest and organic and kind of fun, a whole new way of exploring comedy. So I would not say that I've been held back by these conversations about jokes that hurt people. I think it's been really interesting to hear about it and learn about it and adjust and embrace it and work it into my characters.
I mean, yeah, I was thinking about how Dalton Wilcox is kind of the original anti-vaxxer.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dalton Wilcox, early in the pandemic, he killed COVID-19. He stabbed it in the heart. So he doesn't understand why we're still talking about it.
I'm going to be a little bit nepotistic here. So my sister Gabby is in the audience, a class of '89 alum. Wants to know, what would your dream team be to work with? A group of comedians. What would be your dream team?
Oh, I don't know. My dream team to work with. Amy Poehler was one of the early, one of the founders of the Upright Citizens Brigade, and she directed my first improv group there. And she's just someone that I've always wanted to work with. From what I understand, she's like tired of acting. But I would love to work on something with her. Jessica St. Clair, who played my wife on Review, is amazing, and I would work with her anytime. I don't know, I really love there's nothing better than working with friends and people that you get along with, truly. That's the most fun. People that you trust, everybody trusts each other and everybody enjoys one another's company. So I don't think in terms of like a dream team of people I've never met. I just think about friends, people I know. That would be, just working with friends.
Were you and Amy, was that your first time on Conan when you were her, do you remember the one? You were
maybe
the geography loving boyfriend from.
That might have been that's true. We did work together on that. That might have been my first. I don't remember my very first Conan bit, but it could have been that. I don't know. I did a lot of bits on Conan over the years, and it's a shame I don't remember my very first one. But that might have been it. Including,
just so the audience knows, part of the GW curriculum is Reed Newport, the lost television host from the 1970s or 80s. I guess he's in 1980s.
I would say both. Yeah.
Which I mean, that's just one of the most brilliant characters I've ever seen.
I love it. They keep him in a crate somewhere on the Warner Brothers lot. Yeah.
Matthew, any last questions before we move to the next segment?
Let me think. I guess
yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
No, I was just going to say you write for the High Times.
That's right. Yeah.
And none of these questions have been about marijuana yet. So we were saying before, anytime I tell somebody that my high school newspaper is called the High Times, they go, "What do you mean? That can't be right." Yeah, go ahead, Matthew. Ask me a question.
Sure. I was just wondering, when you're getting together with your friends like that and having like a funny comedy sketch, how do you keep a straight face, basically? Like, how do you try not to totally just laugh until you can't stop?
It can be very, very hard. And then the worst thing is, once the giggles start, it's so hard to stop them. You have to you have to think of something sad. And but what I found on Review, the way to not giggle on Review, and this is probably the best advice really, is that you just have to really think about how your character would think of this moment and really try to feel that way about it, so that on Review, hilarious things would be happening, but I played a character who was very self-serious and very serious about everything that was happening. And so in the scene where he's trying to simulate what it would be like to be a little person, and so he's got shoes affixed to his knees and he's walking around on his knees and accidentally sets the house on fire, but because of his commitment to the simulation won't stand up to grab the fire extinguisher. It's absurd, and it looks funny and it's hilarious, but he is 100% serious about the danger he's in and the seriousness of being on his knees right now. And so that I think is the key to just really be immersed in what your character's experience of this is. But it's easy to say that, and then it's very hard not to laugh sometimes.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Hey, Bill, I just got an alert on my watch that there's possibly lightning approaching.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I hear some thunder here over in the Willard section. I don't know if you guys can hear it, but do you guys hear that or no?
I hear the lightning.
Yeah, you can hear the lightning. Yeah. All right, so we're going to enter a segment, Andy, here called the lightning round. And boy. I'm going to ask you about 10 questions, rapid fire, first thing that comes into your mind. It sounds like you're in Ridgewood because your parents still live here, but you can answer from the 70s, the 80s, now, whatever it is, because a lot of them are very Ridgewood specific, all right?
Okay.
You ready? Do you need to do anything to prepare for this, or?
No, I don't think so. I'm ready, but you threw me for a loop. I was preparing to answer the questions from the mindset of like the 70s and 80s, but now
whatever it is.
Whatever. Okay, let's go.
Okay, ready? All right, here we go. Favorite place to get ice cream growing up?
The Magic Fountain.
Oh, wow. Wow. You could get actually more than ice cream there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good chat on that one.
Going back to the high times thing. Anyways, best Ridgewood tradition.
What? Best Ridgewood tradition? The fireworks at the band shell.
Okay. Tell me something only a kid from Hawes would understand.
Something only a kid from Hawes would understand is that there was a section of the building where the floor went from a hard floor to a carpeted floor because they added on to the building and didn't think it was important to match the floor.
All right. Favorite teacher before you got to RHS?
Karen Fisher. I had Karen Fisher in 3rd grade at Hawes and 5th grade at Travell, and she would give me, oh, this is a lightning round. Never mind, go.
If I asked you in RHS what you'd be doing now, what would you have said?
Oh, what would I have said? I think I would have guessed that I was a news weatherman.
All right. Lenny's or Renato's?
Renato's.
Best place in Ridgewood.
Oh, wait, Mama Rose's. Go
Oh,
ahead.
there you go. Okay. Best place in Ridgewood when you need to kind of get your creative juices flowing.
The Warner Quad.
RHS achievement that you're the most proud of.
I maybe playing the lead in Volpone sophomore year is my proudest accomplishment.
All right. Where did the Daly family set up their chairs for the 4th of July?
Oh, for the parade?
Yeah.
We did not. Look, you know, I don't believe in putting a chair out the night before.
Yeah. We don't need people stalking you guys anyway. So, okay. Fair enough.
But usually by Graydon. We usually watched it by Graydon, if I recall.
Okay. If you had first pick in kickball at Hawes, who are you picking?
Jesse Halliburton.
Most iconic building in Ridgewood.
The most iconic building in Ridgewood is gonna be where the Haagen-Dazs is or used to be, right there in the
Okay.
corner,
Yeah.
where the Christmas tree, Bagelicious.
Good answer. We were kind of hoping you would say Ridgewood High School, but that's fine.
Oh, that's a building, right?
All right.
It's Ridgewood High School.
That concludes our lightning round and pretty much our interview. But we want to thank you so much, Andy.
Oh, that was so much fun.
I just want everyone to know, I got off the phone with the district authorities. The views in this webinar are those of Andy Daly and not the Ridgewood Public Schools.
Are we done? Is that over?
No, we're not.
Oh, okay. I want more detail. I never really knew exactly what went down at the Magic Fountain. So if you've got more details, I want to know. But I know.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I know it was something.
Yeah, I know I wasn't allowed to go there, so there was something going on there. Why don't we spin back real quick, Tim, to the RHS TV picture? I know we flashed on it real quick, but can you give us any thoughts on what's going on here in these pictures? Why does Paul Horan look so mad? He's such a nice guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, I think that's Brent Kenyuk up there in the corner. He's bringing the tough guy energy too. We were raised on the mean streets of Bergen County, New Jersey. This is a tough group of kids, hard scrabble living.
Yeah, this looks like the picture before the picture, because you look pretty angry there too, actually.
Yeah, I do. That was, these kids, myself included, were involved in a lot of extracurricular activities. So this day was a very busy day of taking pictures. And, at a certain point, you can't smile anymore, man.
All right, great. Well, Andy, thanks so much. I'm going to send us out with a few commercials, but it really, really was so much fun for me and for us to interview you. And thanks for being so generous with your time. It's really been greatly appreciated. And we're so proud of you. We love seeing you on TV and telling our kids and friends, hey, we know that guy, but thanks so much.
Thank you. That was fun. And thank you, Matthew. Good luck to you. And yeah, thanks. That was right.
So a couple quick things about the Alumni Association. As I mentioned earlier, we're a 501c3. So we are all volunteer organization, and we have a few sources of revenue. One is our alumni apparel. So if you want to get yourself some Ridgewood High School alumni gear, go to our website, and there's the specific URL to our apparel store. And then we'll flip over to the next slide, Tim. Another way that we generate revenue for the Alumni Association is through our commemorative bricks campaign. You can see in this little picture here, the bricks there curtain the walkways around RHS. You can get them in 1 and 2 sizes, the 4x8 or the 8x8. So you can commemorate a teacher or a friend or whoever you want to. And those bricks are permanently installed on the campus. And lastly, I am the president, so it is my job to make the ask. We're definitely in need of some donations to just fund the operations. It's helps us put on events like this and cover our costs. So any amount would be great if you can. There's some options there to donate back to the school, credit card, PayPal, or check, and that would be greatly appreciated. But I just want to send us off tonight and say thanks so much to Andy and to everyone, and thanks for joining. Take care, everybody.